Hello.
Hey.
Hey, and welcome everyone. Let me go ahead and take this off because that's not helpful.
Dum dum dum. Take this out. All right. Wait, sorry.
The image.
Oh, the image.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're
New show today.
No. Not that kind of show here.
Welcome to our OnlyFans.
What? Stop saying stuff out of your mouth. We're at a later hour tonight.
Yeah.
This guy, after full long day.
Full long day.
It's a little delusional.
Terrible sense of humor. It is what it is. I apologize-ish.
So we've had some technical difficulties for everyone streaming online. We are only on YouTube tonight, and I actually kind of prefer it.
Fair?
Yeah. And I might just start streaming straight to YouTube so we can get better quality. So welcome everyone, especially if you're joining us from Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all the way over here onto YouTube.
Yeah.
We appreciate you being here with us and sticking it out. This is our new time that we're going to be testing out. It's 6 Pacific.
Yeah, 6 Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Yep.
And so here we are.
So
a little bit later. Hopefully catch people on their commutes or after they get home or they're ready to chill after dinner. Who knows? But wherever you are, we're glad you're joining us. We don't know what you all are
doing, but we're glad that you're here.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing most of the time. All right.
Me neither. So how's your week going?
It's going. It feels long and heavy and plodding, but there was some other...
The life of a therapist and consultant.
Fair. I think, I just think it's one of those transitional times of year where people are moving from winter to spring. There's a lot of expectations, some of the things that are in the air.
As you sniff because of allergies.
There's a lot of allergies everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's interesting time of year. I don't know. It's a lot. It's good for change. I don't know. It's an interesting time. But
how does that work for you as a therapist? Well, the world itself and the people on it possibly are going through change.
It's a great time to challenge things, to develop new patterns of behavior, do such wonderful things. So do some soul searching and really find out what aligns your value set and move forward accordingly. So it's a nice time. I don't know. I think because you have that more energy because there's more sun. Mm-hmm. You have more energy because there's more, it's easier to be outside.
It just feels more promising because while I'm working with people, it's like, all right, now there's all kinds of spring activities for you to take advantage of to put the stuff we've been learning and kind of practicing during the winter into effect.
Yeah. Well, I think as somebody from LA who went to DC, I didn't diagnose seasonal affective disorder until we were in DC.
Yeah.
And so
it's legit.
It happens in California, but
Northern.
You see it more.
Yeah.
You see it more where there's real weather.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's where I notice it starts being more prominent, both by myself and everyone else around. It just is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more people out and about.
That's why I appreciate we have this lifestyle of just following the sun.
Yeah.
At this point.
I like
since we're originally from LA, having moved to the East Coast, we love the East Coast, love DC, obviously, and DC radio. And our practice is founded there in DC. But being able to be remote and travel the sun, go south for the winter has been wonderful.
It's like what they call an endless summer, except you're not a surfer. So
yet.
Okay.
That might be, I don't know.
That's cool. Hey, good for you. New skills. I like it.
And then while I'm traveling, I have friends all over the place. And we like to do our virtual check-ins and calls and kind of keep up to date with everything that's going on. And so it's been nice to check in with everyone. And at the same time, I'm learning more and more about my people that I don't think I've realized along the way. Something in particular, and this is with a variety of people in my life. I've recently learned they have these interactions, just think like all of us. They find themselves in these situations or circumstances where something inappropriate is happening around them.
Yeah.
And then I think just because my value set is like, you speak up and you say something and you do something about it, I like assume that like all of my people at the very least are the same way.
Yeah.
And my mind almost kind of like,
Projects.
what's the word? Oh shoot, where you like have different mindsets for different places. It'll come back to me later.
I don't know. No, I don't know.
But like when I'm like thinking of like, okay, I'm working with trainees on a certain subject, or I'm working with a client, I'm like already in the mindset of like, I'm going to meet them where they're at, and then we're going to work toward what we're trying to accomplish. And then I don't think that way when I'm with like people in my personal life.
Yeah.
I'm just like, we're on the same wavelength. We have the same values.
Yeah.
We're like in the same stage of life. And then as we kind of like talk through things, I realized like, no, they wouldn't necessarily behave or act or make decisions in the same way that I would.
Yeah.
And that kind of throws me off a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because they have all of the responses that anyone else has without your training, especially.
Well, yeah, I'm not like out there training my friends. Like,
exactly.
Sit down here for brunch.
Let me tell you how.
Let me open up my PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. Although, that's a thing that people do apparently.
I know. I have been seeing those videos of people doing PowerPoint presentations for their friends.
But they're always
update them on their lives. Or like
some of them are really funny though. Some of them are great and really, really funny.
It looks fun to watch, and I don't want to do any more screen time.
Yes, that's also true. That makes sense.
To create the presentation for my friends.
And that's the thing. Like, people don't respond how you expect them to respond. And I think that's one of the things that I think we talked about last time about, us, we kind of have that same value set and we intervene.
I think that's what throws me off too, is that because like I live with you, you're another human being outside of like my values and beliefs and like how I think and what I would do. And yet you respond very similarly to the way that I do. So I'm kind of biased now.
Yeah, no. And I mean,
I expect everyone in my life to think the same way I do.
True.
And then act the same way I would act.
I mean, and so like, all right. So yesterday, RV Foodies, we posted some of our New Orleans stuff and New Orleans content. And I love New Orleans, but it kind of makes me think of this thing. So like, I was going down the street in New Orleans, one of my first times there on my own, and there was a car accident where the car actually flipped. And so it was on its side. And so this is kind of crashed explosion. It actually hit a storefront where like a liquor store was.
Oh my gosh.
And over off Esplanade.
Yeah.
But like, so immediately I turn, I hear, something crash. I go run to help because that's my training in hospitals and things like that. So like, I run straight over there. There's glass everywhere. There's people turned over in this car. And so like, a lot of people are just standing there staring. And me and this guy look at each other. We both, and like, he asks for my shoulder. He hops up. He helps grab them out. I take the guy down, the guy who's the driver, and his head was banged up. And so I'm taking a look at him, laying him out so that he's okay, elevating and checking his eyes for whether or not he was like concussed. Yeah. He didn't lose consciousness. He was fine, but like kind of just doing a general first aid assessment. It was okay. I'm trained to do that. I can do that.
Yeah.
Had somebody else pointed at somebody else, like you do like when you learn in CPR, and be like, call 911.
We'll talk more about that.
and that type of thing. But like, it was really weird to have people like stand around, and it took
like,
and it took the two of us doing something to get everyone else kind of moving in motion, and they started helping other people out of the other side of the cars.
Annoying. And I get the brain and like psychological. I intellectually, I get it. Emotionally, it like infuriates me that people don't like do something, act like.
But it makes sense. It makes sense. Sometimes you don't know what to do when you freeze. And there are times in my life where I can definitively say I froze. I mean, going through my life, there were dangerous situations in which I remember freezing. I remember going, "Ooh, I don't know what to do now." And there's really nothing I can do.
Can we ask? Can we talk about it?
No, I'm not talking about
it.
Okay. But I mean, there are things in which I remember vividly just being like not being able to like kind of think of a solution for it or kind of dive in. And when it comes to first aid stuff, always helping, always happy to help, always doing something. And there's been horrible times where those things happened where I was able to help. That was fine too. Yeah. But that's the scary part. Like it takes that little push to get people moving.
Right. And I was trying to think, to be fair,
I
was trying to think like, okay, when do I freeze? And I'm also trained to like to respond in a crisis. And so like out in the community, I respond. At work, obviously I respond. And I was thinking about it, it's more like when I freeze or when I get kind of like tripped up are like microaggressions. And so like upstanding to a microaggression throws me up, but like in it of itself, a microaggression like throws people off. It's not like if it was, and then if it's like family, especially like the family that I'm like new to, like if it's your family.
Why do they laugh? They're great.
Especially like when we're first dating or like I'm still like becoming familiar, you know, with people and like how they talk and what, you know, how they act and stuff. And then so then you have all the like social things that could trip you up as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Which is all very natural. So.
And you work those things out, and I think you worked those things out with my family long ago, and that's why you all have a great relationship.
Or when it, you know, when it comes to families and stuff, like if I get tripped up in the moment, especially if you don't catch it, we'll talk about it after. And I'm not one to like keep my mouth shut for very long. I'm like, I openly process. So like immediately after we'll start talking about this. And then we'll come up with a game plan on how, like what we want to do if we want to do anything about any kind of circumstance. But it's weird though, how that ends up working out. So we're going to be talking all about a little thing called upstanding. And the difference between that and just being a bystander. All of the challenges and barriers associated with it, because we are human. And we are super imperfect. And then talk about like how to conquer all that.
Well, I mean, that's the really hard part of this. It is hardwired into our brains, right? Like a lot of this is definitively hardwired into who we are, what we're about. Like as a human, you do have fight and flight. Makes sense. We have all heard of those. We've seen Waterboy and other things. Fight or flight.
Where's the reference in Waterboy?
Because the medulla oblongata, they talk about.
And they go into fight or flight?
Yeah.
What do they say? We're into this is pop culture.
No, it's too old of a reference. Go talk amongst yourselves. All right, so
you're the one who brought it up.
That's why I moved on very quickly. I didn't perseverate on it. All right, so fight, flight, and then there's freeze and fawn. Right. And when you think about these things, there is freeze, like fawn. Fawn is an interesting one. I think that's a more social grace thing, and there's some social aspect to that where it's like social mechanics which you've created around this idea of fawning. Freeze is a very much big part of that, because freeze is a lot of what people don't realize when it comes to a panic attack, what they're actually going through. They're going through freeze or like playing dead. Their brain and their body aren't talking. They get very confused and panic about it. And then they go inward and just cycle and cycle and cycle. So these are all normal. You're a human. You have these triggers.
And this is your autonomic nervous system that's responding.
You don't.
So it's really like out of your control.
It has no executive functioning. It is a. I always picture it. You know, the Frankenstein switch.
Yes.
You know, it's toggle. That big. That's what I always picture. In your brain is a tiny little person wearing a little black outfit that goes.
I imagine it turning it down.
Okay.
You're off. We are taking you offline, and we are making all the decisions from here on out.
But so no executive functioning, which is why people think they're having a heart attack.
And it's a defense mechanism, which is a weird thing to say after you just say it. That's why people feel like they're having a heart attack, because it seems odd that a defense mechanism to protect you would make you feel like you're having a heart attack.
Well, here's the thing: if you had a bear in front of you, and then your brain said play dead and you pass out, you faint or something thereof.
Well, depending on the bear, I guess there's like certain bears
of course, but I'm saying
big and some you're supposed
to just
I can never
insert animal here or something else that needs you to play dead. All right. But the idea is that like in that moment, your brain is going, oh no, I don't know what to do, flips off, and there you are playing dead. Like you don't have a thought process around it. It is your body doing it. So in social situations or in situations in which you've had like some other engagement or you don't expect it coming. It doesn't make any sense.
Because here's what's happening in your brain. It's scanning and detecting for a threat, right? Now, when we say threat, we're not necessarily just talking physical, like an animal or even like a human that might be a threat. And we're also looking for social threats.
Yeah, well, because
and emotional
spikes.
threats
Yeah.
as well. Obviously, none of this is like conscious. We're not like, ooh, crisis, beep, 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 beep. It's just all very fast happening. Your brain's brilliant in that way. The tricky thing is that if it's picking up even a perceived emotional or social threat, it's going to take you down a certain pathway to protect you. That pathway being, don't say shit. Just watch or
create distance, or just kind of silently fade away a little bit. Yeah, disappear. And what's interesting is now apply that to social theory, and you get the bystander effect, right? And so you have a room full of people,
social psychology,
staring at a problem, and all it takes is a catalyst, something to change that, which is somebody doing something. But most people, the more people there are who aren't saying anything, the harder it is for somebody to feel like they're mustering the courage, because you're looking around going, well, somebody's going to do it.
It gets even more complex. Somebody's going to do it. For our brain and our decision-making abilities.
And if you've ever learned about this stuff, it usually comes from how they observed Kitty Genovese. If you've heard that story, 1964, I want to say it's in New York. They were attacked in the middle of an apartment area.
A woman was
attacked.
It's such a horrific story.
And yeah, it's a pretty horrible story.
That story is like in my mind every single time a crisis happens.
Yeah.
And there's a group of people, and I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen here, where we just assume because there's a lot of people, like
that somebody's going to do the right thing.
The story is, you could look it up, but there was like people in like these like apartment complexes. Everyone's looking out of their window down into the street because they hear a woman screaming, and they all look down and they see this woman being attacked. And because they can see each other in the other rooms, they're all assuming that someone else is making the call to the police and to safety and to help her. Someone's going to come down and help her. And the entire freaking time she's being attacked in front of their eyes.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
No one's doing anything.
It's a long period of time. It's a pretty brutal story. If you want the short version, watch the movie Boondock Saints. At the very beginning, he tells the story. The priest tells the story about bystanding, hence motivating these vigilantes.
That's another good pop culture reference.
Another old movie. It's not new. Thanks. I can quote any movie you want. That's fine. But yeah.
So that grossed me out that as humans are like that. And I learned that in a psych class. And then ever since then, that stuck with me. But then we also need to think about social norms as well, and how we were raised, either implicitly or explicitly. And especially when we think about like systems of oppression toward minority groups, the message is stay quiet, stay passive, stay submissive, and you will be safe. And that is also very disgusting. Yeah. And that is something that's ingrained in a whole lot of us, that we just need to be.
Because the risk is exponentially more. Because of the ways in which you've been systemically threatened, and individually, personally threatened, the danger is exponentially more. I mean, who wants to intervene, like, if they're going to be blamed for whatever else is going on?
And that's what when I'm thinking back to like my personal life and friends, it seems like a lot of that is coming from these social norms and being targets of systems of oppression. The threat to them and their livelihood and well-being is very much a real factor that they're considering when they're deciding not to upstand.
Well, and it's something that people manipulate on, like, too, because I mean, when you think about this, like systems of oppression or any hate groups, for example, utilize that fear-based tactic to then elicit the response they want. So nobody will say anything or do anything. But then you have, groups in different communities who say, nope, we're not going to accept this. And they all go and walk toward it. And regardless of whatever the police presence is there or not, they tell them, get off our land, get off our area, get off our neighborhood, get out of here. This is not where you belong. You do not need to be here. That's an insult to all of us.
And then that's how I was raised. Yeah. Well, half and half. My dad was a little bit more authoritarian military guy, like just follow orders. And then my mom was more, no, you're going to stand up for yourself and for others. This is what we do. And then for you, both were like,
my parents were both active people who wanted to make a difference. And also I think like a big part of that has to be like, I'm Jewish. So then like kind of bringing those things up as like in a microcosm of things and systems of oppression, that type of stuff. You learn it. You explicitly learn all of those stories starting very young, because one of the things is if you understand it, if you really know it and you educate around things like the Holocaust, you try to prevent them, right? Never again. And so when you come to that idea and around those stories and what that means, you know that sitting by is not an option, and you have to be active in that stance. And I mean, Southern California growing up had a large neo-Nazi presence. It has a large hate group presence that you'd never see coming. People typically don't see it like that. But if you've seen, for example, American History X, it was there. It was real. And so like that's pretty scary and pretty terrible. And there was a lot of ways in which people fought against that everywhere. But you also you fight against that too.
And that's the interesting part, because for me, my upbringing was, because you're a woman, you need to be prepared to respond. The likelihood of me and my peers being in these types of crisis situations is higher. We're more at risk. And so that was kind of like the thought process as well. It seems like from your parents, and then my dad was like, good on that front to protect myself and others, but.
I think that we're taught. Unless you're taught to do something different, to be the upstander, you really get stuck in this paradigm where you are then kind of. And I'm not saying people are complicit, because like that implies that. I feel like that's too great of a judgment. I feel like it's too great of a judgment. It's that you need to then reflect on what skills you need to build and to grow and to make those changes, so you feel more comfortable diving into situations that you can make a difference in, and or even if you don't believe you can make a difference, but where you can be present or your voice can be heard. And I think upstanding requires everybody to kind of be present in that space, and all it takes is one person to say, that's not right. No, we're not doing that. And you don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to shout. You don't have to beat it with a bat. You don't have to do all these things in which that could possibly be violent in nature, even about these things. It is just saying, no, I don't agree with that. All it takes is no. And I think that's where that really needs to start.
I mean, the training even includes the option to, to distract. Changing the subject.
Look over there.
Removing yourself or a target from the environment. Checking in with the target of whatever the issue is.
And with that in mind, I think there's a lot of ways in which you can use some tools to grab, some things to like kind of know and understand about as we're talking about your own reactions to those problems.
And we'll talk a little bit more about this. Let's hear from other people and what their thoughts, because you're saying people aren't complicit and other people disagree.
That's okay. I'm all right with that.
So let's hear what other people have to say about this.
All right.
So you don't want anybody to say anything complimenting wise, don't put it on.
I don't really want to talk about the dude in that video who's like screaming like a maniac in a public space, obviously, whatever. I want to talk about all the other men in that public space who are doing and saying nothing, who are watching that go down. This man yelling at a young woman talking about, if you don't want to be commented on, then you wear a bathrobe. Listen how that sounds. Okay, cool. Right? That's an obvious example of an extreme of toxic masculinity. And I'm not saying that, man. I think masculinity is an important part of the fabric of our culture. Absolutely. When it's grounded and healed. But on this end, there's that bombastic example of something radical. And on the other end, you have all these people who are saying nothing. And I'm not saying you got to be any of the things that they that people like to say on Twitter. Oh, you got to be a simp. You got to be a panderer. You have to be a man. And all we talk about is how manhood, masculinity is about protection. It's about authority. It's about intervention. Intervention. That's why I'm never, ever, ever gonna get on Will Smith for what he did at the Oscars. Because when you have somebody who has been harassing your wife relentlessly, and then gets up on a public platform, one of the biggest stages in the world, and targets her because of her disability, to me, that's a moment when I say it's time for me to intervene. And that is the power that y'all are saying, that we're saying masculinity is all about. Protection.
Thoughts?
I mean,
Listening to that, and I've been thinking about this, I guess for a while, because someone's like, I was raised pretty masculine by those terms and definitions of masculinity. And so if we're defining masculinity as intervening and standing up
and protection,
that is all my stuff.
Yeah, see, I'm like, I don't tie those things to masculinity.
Yeah. We could do a whole other topic on masculinity.
I tie those things to empathy and care.
Social awareness. Yeah. But that's a whole other show.
No.
We'll note that down. We'll talk about masculinity.
But I do get the purpose, which is like if you're in a group full of people,
the board,
you're in a group of people and nobody's doing anything to intervene. I do agree. There is something there to say something.
Yeah.
There's some, I don't know about duty, but like I don't know.
Well, I mean, like in other countries, there is a duty.
Well, I mean, not just in other countries, in our country,
the law.
In our country, there's a law.
We don't have Good Samaritan. Not in every state.
Not in every state, but there's some.
So don't say it's in our country when
it is in our country. It is in our country.
Which states? We'll have to find.
New York, right?
So one.
I mean that's the one I know offhand.
So when we're talking about Good Samaritan, there's like in some countries there's like a legal requirement because of that case that we talked about earlier. There is a legal requirement that if there is some kind of crisis, you have to intervene or you will be legally responsible for not.
And it doesn't mean you even have to intervene necessarily. You just have to be able to
even like call the police or something.
You just have to draw some awareness to the situation or try and assistance in whatever way.
And then along with that, there are protections for bystanders who are intervening in a crisis.
That's
which I think is another concern, which is an unfortunate concern,
because there's a lot of litigation around like people trying to act and do those things.
Yeah.
But all right, let's see. I want to see what else you got for us. So let's see. We got this guy. So we're gonna go to this one right here. Ready? All right.
Being a bystander is just as bad as doing the bullying yourself. You know the person that is getting bullied, tormented, tortured, if you will. If you know that they is quiet, they keep to themselves, they don't bother nobody, they keep their goddamn head down, and they only have a small group of friends, and they are still getting mercilessly bullied. You've seen it happen, you know who the culprits are, and you didn't say nothing, you are just as bad. Here come I was just minding my business. That don't have nothing to do with that. I'm just minding my business. Then y'all be shocked to hear that this person tried to unalive themselves. Maybe like a month or two later. And then you find out that it had everything to do with the bullying that you seen and didn't say anything about. Y'all will curse out teachers, your parents, other students, your own damn friends and siblings for these smallest inconveniences on your life, but you can't use that voice to help someone who needs a voice right now. Okay.
I appreciate that.
Right?
Okay.
So you have that sense of responsibility there as well. And then they even took it to another thing that we haven't even talked about. I mean, like, sure, in that moment, there's an issue from what's happening in that moment, but what about the ongoing psychological, emotional harm that's done?
Yeah.
And then the long-term effects and consequences.
Very true. No, I appreciate that.
Of what you're observing.
I think that's the thing. Like when you look at these things, it's not a moment. It's every moment thereafter that they're kind of reliving. Because how many times have you had some either like person hurt you or microaggression or bullying or anything else like that? I mean, I remember the people that hurt me in some point in time. They live in my head. I mean, do I think about it every day? No. Did it affect me in some way, shape, or form? Of course. I'm a human. Did I get stronger from it? Possibly. Did it also
By
hurt?
choice.
Also, it hurt.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Yeah, I really like how she said that.
Yeah.
Because she talked about the longer term implications.
Mhm.
So we got one more. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. I like this. All right.
You know, if you're in a medical emergency and you need help and you say, somebody help me, there will be a bystander effect where nobody comes and help you. You got like a 85 to 90% chance that no one will help you, because everybody who's watching whatever's going on, it's a bystander effect. They're just going to keep looking because they're battling like thoughts in their head like, oh, should I help? Oh, maybe somebody else will step in. Am I qualified to even help? Like literally battling self-doubt in their head on why they should not help you or why should they help you. There is a technique to get people to help you. Also teach us this in the military when we're going through our CPR class. So say that you're in a medical emergency, you literally need to hone in on one person. One person, look them directly in their eyes, point at them and give them an instruction like, hey, you, and be real specific, like, hey, you, brown shirt, blue jeans, glasses, pointing at you, staring them in his soul, call 911. I am in dire need of help. Oh, they talking to me, so I have to act.
Yep.
Literally clearing every self-doubt that they had in their head,
Well,
putting them in a position to be a hero. So they have to step in. It's been scientifically proven. It's what they taught me in the military.
So there's another piece of that I don't know if he catches to it, but it's also that when you give a direct pointing response to something, you're like, hey, brown shirt, blue pants, glasses.
Yeah.
Everyone looks at that person to see whether or not they're going to do it.
Yes.
So there's also that weird guilt and shame thing that kicks in, because if they walk away, they're the piece of shit who walked away.
Psychology at its finest.
So good. So good. So yeah, it gives a specific, but it also alleviates somebody of a burden of trying to figure out how to help, which that's where people freeze. They don't know how to help or what they could do. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's why there's universal signs for choking. That's the universal signs, that's why people use it, because then you go, I know to do the Heimlich maneuver when you're choking. If you didn't know that, that's the universal sign.
I'm trying to think of the other ones.
Well, if you can't breathe, you're usually not conscious.
Right. No, I was thinking like fire or
There's
anxiety attack or
I don't think there's that for that one. But choking makes sense because you don't know what somebody's doing. They're just like heaving.
Yeah.
And so.
No, I gotcha. Other ways to level up, Alex?
Other ways to level up? Train. We did a training. Go do this training. It's a really good training.
I know. Well, so here's the thing about.
I don't like tooting my own horn, but it's really good.
There are a lot of bystander trainings out there. And unfortunately, a lot of them are done by, I don't know who. I don't know who's doing these trainings.
People who want to make a buck trying to do a training.
But they're like, they focus on like, they'll focus on the end result, like they'll focus on like what you need to do. And a lot of people talk about, what is it, like the 5 Ds? We cover that in our training too. Like what you need to do without all of this stuff. We just spent way more time than we have in this DC radio episode. Which is all the psychological stuff that's happening to get you to do what you need to do in order to be an upstander.
Yep.
There's just so many brain wiring, social messaging, upbringing, circumstantial barriers to you even implementing any of these practices.
I'm trying to think of like something comparable, like CPR or something, where like if you didn't understand that there was lungs in somebody's chest that helped them breathe and a heart that pumped blood, would you understand what you were doing there? Do you know what I mean? Like, would you even know? You'd just be like pounding on a chest thinking that it did something magically. I don't know. Like if you had none of this information about how something worked, how do you do it effectively? And that's what I think of. Like, learn how to do this effectively. Yeah. There are lots of ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to de-escalate things without ever having to actually like accost somebody or physically do something or say anything that's like abrasive or rude or whatever else. Like, there are ways to then snap people out of things that are silly and stupid.
And then
I used to tell people who
yeah.
wanted to hurt me to pick I had a deck of cards. I tell them to pick a card. They get distracted by a magic trick. Like seriously, psychotic people trying to murder me would be distracted by a magic trick. And that worked with anybody.
And again, anyone with a mental illness is more likely to be a victim of a crime than be a perpetrator of a crime.
True.
We worked under very maximum
thank
security
you.
situations
But,
with a rare population that,
but I mean, that's the thing still stands where it just
and
very true.
Yeah.
Maybe
no, but I got you.
that is. But the thing is, like, there are
relevant.
distractions that are really simplistic. Even if you were to point behind somebody, like, "Hey," and just shout, "Hey," they will look over there. They will stop what they're doing and look.
Yeah.
Like, and then all of a sudden, you have an opening to get the heck out of whatever you're doing.
And so, in the trainings, whether it's ours or another bystander training that you take, you're going to learn a variety of things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
That, fits with your comfort, even in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way, at least you have like a tool belt of options to choose from on the fly.
Lots of tools.
And then practice.
Yes.
Practice upstanding in relationships where you feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, that's actually.
I upstand with you all the time.
Yes, you do.
I hope you feel comfortable to upstand with me.
Sometimes.
With our close friends, and practice and play around with your technique, and then keep on increasing that discomfort, with how and where and with whom you're upstanding.
Yep.
And it's going to be different for everyone.
It just starts with one thing. It just starts with one little thing. When you start trying to make change, it only takes one person or one thing to start movement.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all you need. So just keep that in mind. These are not helpless and hopeless situations. These are things that can change. And
then talk this stuff up too. Even, whatever kind of restrictions you might feel within yourself, talk it out with someone, reflect on, like, where's that coming from? Why do I think that that it's not okay for me to say that's not okay?
It's a good reflection.
Teach the younger generations to be, introspective, and socially aware, and how to stand up for themselves and to check in with others, and to acknowledge when things aren't okay. I'm feeling like the next generations, because the parents have these values and are challenging the suppression of, like, just stay silent and deal with it and you'll be fine. They're challenging that, and they're teaching their little ones about consent, about standing up for other people, and so hopefully things will get better. But until then, check us out. We have lots of things for you to learn, to keep on, not just like learning new skills, but to self-reflect on where you're at, why, to learn new things, and then practical steps on how to make these types of changes in your life, in your community, in your workplace. So check us out at
learn.witandreason.com.
Good job.
Say it.
I have it right here in the screen.
I can get it right this time.
Because it's right there in front of you. And because I just said learn.
No, because it's right there. I was really excited, but you kept on talking. I was going to say it. It's like, I can get it right this time.
We have so many different addresses and accounts.
Also, just that's not how my brain works. So
if this subject matter stresses you out, we got something for that as well.
Or a health app. Amazing app. Go get the guest pass. You get free.
I could give you a guest pass to Aura because I have audio lessons on there. But other health apps that we like, Calm.
Calm's great.
What was the meditation timer one that was free?
Headspace?
No, there's a free one.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Meditation? It might be on like an iPhone or I don't know. But Aura is still my favorite. Aura is wonderful. It's got so many different options, so many different things to hear and do and engage with. It's not just passive, it's active. So there's a lot of stuff there for you.
I talk about bystanding in there too.
Yeah, that too.
as
So,
well, and some meditations.
Yep.
And then if you're reflecting and then you're noticing like, ooh, this is bringing up some core beliefs or attitudes that I just don't like anymore. I want to dig into this deeper.
Yeah. So
check us out. We have mental health services, wellness coaching, and traditional therapy, witandreason.com. If you want to meet with another therapist, another resource that I always put out there is psychologytoday.com. You can find a mental health professional in your area by zip code. You could filter by race and sex and gender and specialty, and insurance and price. So you could check out that route as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of routes. There's a lot of pathways for that, but feel free to always reach out. We'll try and help you out too.
But all of this bystanding, and I mean, none of us asked to be bystanders.
No.
But
Upstanders?
None of us asked to just be a bystander to
Wow.
some kind of nonsense
That's
happening in front
fair,
of
too.
us. No
I'm
one
not
asked
asking
for
you
this.
either. But yeah, let's go do
And
it.
we just find ourselves in these situations. So I hope at the very least
So?
you're able to uphold your values and integrity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Until
joining
next
us.
time.
Until next time.
Maybe we'll talk about masculinity.
Ooh.
Let's talk about men's stuff.
All right. So next time.
Most of my training and work is with men in men's mental health.
Yeah.
Yours too.
Mine too.
so
we definitely dig into that.
We'll be diving into that, and a very controversial, for some reason, topic around toxic masculinity. There's a lot of pushback around that.
Let's talk about toxic masculinity.
I have so much to say.
This might be a two-parter.
All right.
Maybe 12.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday, every Tuesday, now at 6 p.m. Pacific,
9 p.m. Eastern.
YouTube.
Bye.